The point is that the ECCA, the Education Choice for Children Act, is about giving that parent the same option that wealthier families had to get the education for their child that child needs.
Open your eyes, your mind, your heart. Let's have a school choice conversation.
Hello and welcome to Choice Conversations. I'm Paul Dauphin of the American Federation for Children, Louisiana, along with my co-host today and my colleague, Caleb Moore. And we are honored to have join us today Senator Bill Cassidy to discuss the Educational Choice for Children Act. Senator Cassidy, welcome.
Hey, Paul, great to be with you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your good work in expanding the ability of a family to choose where their child goes to school. So just hats off to you folks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'll roll right into the first question. Thank you so much again for your hard work on this, Senator Cassidy, and for joining us today. Could you give us a quick overview of the Educational Choice for Children Act?
Yeah, first, let's give an overview of the context of the ECCA, if you will. The overview is that COVID had an incredibly negative impact upon children's education. And we knew that even though the CDC and others would say it's okay to open a school, that there was resistance from the institutions to open. And if you look at it, the performance of 9-year-olds in math and reading dropped to the lowest levels in 2 decades. Now, these are children typically in public schools. Now, keep in mind that if a child can't read at grade level by 9, they're nearly 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. In math, African-American students lost 13 points compared to about 5 points among white children. And I suspect if you correct that for poverty, you would see that the poor folks did the worst regardless of race. And we all know the mental health issue, according to CDC, that the number of teenage girls who have been suicidal has increased 50% nationwide since 2019. Now, what's this have to do with what we're talking about? If you were a parent that had the means or the options, okay, the school's closed, they want me to Zoom, but I can't. Wait, I can go to my local parochial school. I can go to a local private school. There's a charter school which is open. These statistics don't apply to your child. Your child's educational opportunity was maintained insofar as that school remained open. Now, where does that leave us? It leaves us that not enough children have access to this sort of choice, the ability of a parent and a family to go to the school they want. So enter the Education Choice for Children's Act. It expands education freedom and opportunity for an estimated 2 million kids who would be eligible to receive a scholarship. So specifically, if somebody wished to donate to a scholarship granting organization or an SGO, they could and take a tax write-off. Now with this, there's a limit. It's a $10 billion limit, so it's not going to break the federal budget. And the allotment of the credits would be administered by the Treasury Department, but there'd be a base amount for each state, and then the credits would be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, this will be a federal grant, if you will, but the administration of it will come at a state or at a local level. And we've also got it so that if the governor of a state hates charter schools or hates parochial and private, there's a way for a private SGO to set up operation. The point is that the ECCA, the Education Choice for Children Act, is about giving that parent the same option that wealthier families had to get the education for their child that child needs. A lot to say, but I'm sorry, I had to give you context too, and we're very excited about the bill.
So in your view, what's the state of K-12 education today? Even if you would subtract COVID out of it, things were pretty bad, right?
Things are bad. I mean, if you Of course, you need to prioritize K through 12. Are you talking about your local parochial, your private, or your charter school? It's probably a little bit better than your typical your typical K through 12. If you're talking about a suburban school, it's probably better than your urban school. But right now, there's more than 49 million children who are in public charter schools. Only 3% of them have public schools. Only 3% of them having access to education choice. So if you've got some school systems with terrible results, shouldn't the parent have the power to get the choice for their child that would give their child the best outcome? So K through 12, a little bit hit or miss in the public school system. If you're one of those places that's missing, we're trying to give you a choice.
Absolutely. And I know that you've already touched on this, but parents are still wading through the wreckage of COVID-19. They're still kind of dealing with how that affected their schools and their communities. How would this act address that specifically? How would that help parents, undo some of the damage that's been created by COVID-19?
Yeah, so let's just imagine that the parent had the ability to take their child to a school which had accelerated programs for those who are grade level behind. And maybe the child would have to stay after school. Maybe the child would have to go on the weekend, but the parent could choose for that. Or maybe their child particularly did poorly in math during the COVID pandemic. So maybe there'd be a focus upon the math. Our imagination is not sufficient to think of what would be there for a parent to choose for. She's trying to make it better for her child whose educational achievement was damaged by the lockdown. I just think if the parent has choice and if there's competition, then that competition is going to provide a better service to the family.
You've been saying the word over and over. We've been all saying it: parent, parent, parent. Talk about parent power and how it's been changing.
Yeah. So who cares the most about a child's education? The parents, and typically the mom. And she is going to run interference to make sure that her child has the greatest opportunity. By the way, if she doesn't care, may not matter where you put the child unless he's incredibly gifted or she's incredibly gifted. But typically she does care. And she's going to make sure that her child has the best opportunity. Now, if it's just, okay, you live in this neighborhood, you have to go to that school, and we don't care how miserable it is, that's not fair to the mom. She's paying taxes. We ought to say to the mother, no, stop, I'm sorry. You get to choose. If your local school is good for you, more power to you. But let's give you the choice, if that local school is not good, that you can go to another school that can better meet your child's needs. In summary, we want the parent to have the power, not the bureaucrat.
Absolutely. And I know that you've also touched on inequality. That's been a theme as well. Billions spent, but low income and middle class families still don't have that access to that high quality K through 12 education that some others might have had. Thankfully, I was blessed to have a mother that was a teacher. She could spend lots of time with me after school, and kind of regardless of income, she had that expertise. But could you speak to how this addresses the inequality that we're seeing across all kinds of different factors right now in education?
Yeah, so just in life, you notice that if you have money, you typically do a little bit better than if you don't. And that's particularly true in education. Going back to what we've been discussing, if the local school is poorly functioning, and you don't have resources, you're stuck there, and your child, unfortunately, is also stuck. But if you have the resources, you can send your child to another school, and maybe that has a better program, and then your child's trajectory is much different than it otherwise would be. We're trying to erase inequality. Under the Education's Choice for Children's Act, we're trying to give that middle, lower working family the ability to have the same choices as someone who's wealthier. And so if there's a good parochial school, boom, let them take that to that parochial school so their child has the same opportunity. If you will, you take a tree and you bend it when it's young, and you bend it down, it's going to grow like that. If you take a tree and you bend it up, it's going to go straight up. And we want these children's educational experience to be bent in the upward direction.
Well, Senator, I'm going to close this out on this, and it's polling. And again, the polling says parents are open to choice. A variety of polls out there show a cross section of support by race, by party affiliation. Even here in Louisiana, a poll done back in March from Lobby, 82% of parents and 82% of rural voters believe that their children should be able to take advantage of school choice. So with polling like that, why aren't all of your colleagues behind this bill and
Well,
bills like it?
As a rule, this splits down on party lines. As a rule, not always, but as a rule, Republicans are far more for school choice, and as a rule, Democrats oppose. And it's nothing that you couldn't read in the newspaper. Democrats are more aligned with teachers' unions. This is not against the individual teacher, but teachers' unions, not the individual teacher, but the teachers' unions are really reluctant to embrace change. They see it more about protecting the schools and the teachers than they do about making sure the child has the best experience. I'm about that parent and about that child choosing to have the best experience for that child. And some of my Democratic colleagues, that's not their priority. They won't say that, but functionally, that's their priority. If you will, they put kids over institutions. We want kids before institutions. I'm afraid they're putting institutions before kids.
Well, Senator, on that, we say thank you for a great choice conversation.
Hey, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Caleb. I enjoyed it, man. Thank you both.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Open your eyes, your mind, your heart. Let's have a school choice conversation. Open your eyes, your mind, your heart. Let's have a school